Hello, my name is Kristian Roberts, and I'm the Director of Education for the Dallas Opera. I'm here with my fabulous friend and co-host.
My name is Quodicia Johnson, or Quo Johnson. I'm the Education and Company Culture Manager for the Dallas Opera.
And we're back yet again with another episode of Taking the Stage with Kristian
and Quo. This week we are having a very real and a very necessary conversation about keeping that same energy as we go back into productions, as we go into gathering, and as we continue to see that things are still happening and our communities are still being affected. So let's have a conversation about what we do.
In this episode, we are going to be talking about allyship, what it looks like inside your organization and what it looks like outside.
This week, we are coming to you live with a conversation about what it means to measure change. How do we measure meaningful change? What voices should we prioritize? Who should we talk to? And what does real change look like?
So this week's guest is none other than the incomparable, fabulous Angel Blue.
This week, we are joined by none other than the amazing and wonderful Stephanie Drinker.
And of course, we're going to give a shout out. You know, he's here today, but I'm going to shout out anyway to Mr. David Lomeli. Hey, David.
Of course, we would like to start all of our episodes with a land and people acknowledgements because it is important in the work that we do. It is important in the connections that we create. It is important in truth-telling and accountability and in healing the harm. We take this time right here in this space, in this place, to acknowledge that here in Dallas, we are on stolen land. We are on the land of the Caddo, of the Wichita, and of the Comanche sovereign nations. Nations that faced policy, that faced horrible conditions, that faced genocide, that forced the removal of themselves from their land. So we want to acknowledge that people were forced from their land so that others can come in and settle the land.
This is a time to be bold. This is a time to be creative. This is a time to be willing to be vulnerable with other folks, you know. And like I said, you may find that somebody else is feeling the same way.
We also want to take the time to acknowledge that people were stolen from their homes and brought here to Dallas and forced into free and enslaved labor. And from that free and enslaved labor, we now have what we enjoy as Dallas. Dallas is not alone in this, as the entire nation benefits from stolen land and stolen labor. We do this because it is important in the ways that we connect, not how we place blame, but how we take ownership of the narratives, of the ways in which our communities are still here, still thriving, and the beautiful stories that come out of these things, but also the beautiful opportunities to heal the harm and to move forward together.
Let's dive in. Let's dive in and let's talk about the past, few weeks.
If you are a people-centered organization, then that question doesn't get asked because you know that you have that responsibility. But if you're a process and outcome-centered organization, then those people lose their humanity and they just become the tool with which you try to deliver your outcomes or your impact.
Ooh. Dear artists. This is our letter to you from other artists, from arts administrators and from artists. This is our letter to the artists in the industry, the artists that are not in the opera industry. There's so many artists and so many facets, so many ways. So this is to everyone. This is to all of the artists.
In opera, it takes all kinds. In the arts, it takes all kinds. Everybody has a role to play in cultivating that environment that we want to cultivate. Okay.
Yes.
We're going to get all in his business.
Fantastic.
Hello, I'm Melissa Young, the Artistic Director for Dallas Light Dance Theater.
Yay!
How do we, in the middle of experiences the likes of which nobody alive has ever seen before, how do we contend with all of that and still be there for somebody else, which is what our organizations are calling us to do, right? To be there for our family, to be there for our kids. The only way you can do that is by, in some way, form, or fashion, creating some semblance of a support system for people to be human in the middle of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
The operative word has been grace.
Oh.
Yes, Lord.
We use the word grace at work more than I
Yes, we have to.
have ever before I ever thought I would.
Today's episode includes our very wonderful, very lovely guest, Rosaura Cruz, who is the Executive Director of Junior Players.
Our guest today is none other than the fantastic, world-renowned, marvelous Maestro Emmanuel Villon.
So my name is Jinya Huang, and I am the founder of Break Bread, Break Borders. So it is a social enterprise that is developing a culinary program training refugee women from war-torn countries and empowering them with opportunities to share their storytelling through food and culture. So essentially break bread with the communities and break down borders at the same time.
What message are we sharing with others? Are we letting others know that they can kind of borrow this art form and rent this space just a bit when we need them? Your invitation has limitations? Or are we saying that opera belongs to you as well? For this week's episode, our esteemed guest is Charles Chip McNeil of San Francisco Opera. We are joined by Frankie Garcia III, wonderful, amazing community activist, artist, just beautiful soul, all those things are wrapped into one in the work that he does for the community here in Dallas, but also just here in Texas as well.
We were going to dive into truth, and we were going to tackle the quote-unquote hard subjects, and how hard they are depends on who you are, and what lived experience that you have. And for us, this is a very real part of what we have to contend with on a daily basis, living in this nation.
And so we're wanting to make sure that as we go through this process and as we speak, as we share, that we are mindful, of course, always with the show and with what we're wanting to do, wanting to center truth, we want to center connection, we want to center healing. But in order to do that, we got to call it what it is. You have to say what it is. There will be no coddling of emotions, just so we can all get along, feel better, because that doesn't help us in the end. So what we're going to do is make sure we put a call out to everybody, just so you know. At the beginning, we'll start with that call to action. Keep that same energy, and then we'll go from there.
Same energy.
You got to keep that same energy. There you go. If you want to count it out, follow me.
You want to count it out? Keep the same energy.
One narrative for us is we represent y'all. We're honoring y'all. And the other part is that it's still racist. Guess what? That's why your monument got knocked down. The other part is that's why we're taking down old narratives that has been in place. And I tell them, they ask me, why you do it now? I bet you had all those years to enjoy a racist icon. Now we're coming at you.
First person I would like to introduce is Miss Kristian Haley.
Hello.
You can say hi, it's all good.
Okay.
And so our second guest is Mr. Devin De Cutler.
Hi, everyone.
And these two are very special to us. They're sort of a part of our Dallas Opera education family. They are teachers in DISD, educators, local educators. And so we wanted to do some checking in with them today.
We think it's really important to see people like you. We think it's important to interact with people like you, because if not, then I don't think any progress will be made. I don't think there's any comfort you will get from talking about your problems. You need to be able to relate to people in order to take action.
So today's guest is Renee Umbaba from Black Women in Opera. She is actually the founder of Black Women in Opera. And so welcome, Renee.
My name is Jerry Hawkins. I'm currently the Executive Director of Dallas Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation. It's an initiative of the Kellogg Foundation, part of a 14-place initiative of Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation.
This is the lady that introduced me to opera for the first time. And is there any way I can bring my children? Absolutely. The door is open. Here's the date, here are the tickets. That's all we need to do,
This week, our wonderful guest is Michael Crowley of La Placa Cohen.
And this week, we have a very special guest, none other than world-renowned bass Mr. Morris Robinson himself. There's a lot of apprehension, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's nothing wrong with that. So be real, be bold, be creative.
Really sit and consider, are you trustworthy? And if you're not, shift so that you can be. Shift shift so that you as an individual shift, so that the organization shift, so that the field can be trustworthy in the things that we are promising ourselves, but also in the things that we are promising others, and in the change that we are promising, and the ways that we bring that change about, or bring those changes about. You don't have to do it alone, right? As we always say, but you do have to do it.
So trust the resilience that you've shown and build off of that, build those additional strengths. You have what you need to make it in this season, and that's where your hope comes from. You don't have to have hope for the future. You can have hope right now, and that will carry you through the future. And that hope is that you have what you need to have gotten to where you are now, and you're going to use that same resourcing and those same strengths to get you to the next phase.
Like, why are we penalizing them? They should be getting more money because they know how to do this. But again, you have to expand your awareness to understand those kinds of things, because some funders will look at, well, let's look at their budget, and they're only a budget size this size, so they will grant accordingly. And yet, there's a lot of different ways to kind of shift that power zone.
I'm Darrell A. Khan. I am the Director of Engagement and Equity at Long Beach Opera. I'm also the Arts Equity Specialist for the Opera America New Works Forum. I'm a bass baritone, an activist, an educator, and a scholar.
Well, and another thing, on top of that, when the community does ask that question, and then they go away, and then you find yourself in a pickle where you can't sell tickets, and you find yourself in a problem of filling those seats, and then you start tokenizing folks and trying to get them to go to the community. That is not an authentic approach. You moving to communities of color and trying to do outreach or engagement with community colors should not be a desperate attempt to put more butts in seats.
More butts in seats.
But it's the truth. And so we have to be very careful about how we are in our casting, how we are working with our community, and how we truly want to engage with them. You have to authentically engage with people. You have to have the culture of humility to go and say, we were wrong. What do you need? How do we do this?
I am honored. I am overjoyed. Too many words. To be able to introduce my professors from the Prairie View A&M University. I would like to introduce Dr. Vicki Selden. I would like to introduce Dr. A. Jan Taylor. And I would like to introduce Dr. John Cornelius.
My name is Phil Chan. I'm currently on Lenape-Canarsie land in Brooklyn, otherwise known as. And I'm the co-founder of Final Bow for Yellowface, which was a conversation that has helped ballet companies examine how Asian people are portrayed on stage. While Asians are the case study and the focus, the methodology and how we talk about race around Asianness can be applied to other groups of non-white people as well, especially in the traditional performing arts.
You are needed.
Yes.
I know this pandemic was a blow, but artists, arts administrators, we are needed, and we're needed
People
now.
Are needed. Just
yes,
you
we are needed.
Yourself, your spirit is needed in
yes,
this.
You are needed.
Thank you all for showing up every time and for continuing to be a part of the conversation, but continuing to be a part of the work. This is the work, y'all, and we're doing it, and we're all doing it marvelously. And I know that we can continue to do that.
Be bold, and don't be afraid to be bold. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to question what you've been told. Don't be afraid to learn something new and then apply it. We are in a time right now when we're in a sort of pause, and this is a good time to start doing those things.
Positive notes, as always. Be bold, be creative because you are, and then be willing to have the conversations necessary to get to the core of what matters. Those conversations, they can be uncomfortable, but they should always be creative. The love is there between the three of us. The love is there, the respect is there, the honor is there, and the ability to listen is there. You do not have to do it alone. We are all in this together. So I'm looking forward to continuing to move forward together.
So with that, folks, thank you so much for watching, and we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate the Dallas Opera for this platform. and we will see you again next week. Peace.
Bye.